Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the fifth and last volume in Gianandrea Noseda's pretty admirable, really very admirable series of Liszt tone poems on 5 discs. The last one contains some not actually canonical works as part of the tone poems. First, the Dante Symphony, and second, the two legends. The two legends, in case you're curious, hang on a minute, it has to do with like St. Francis of Assisi and stuff. Yes, St. Francis of Assisi's Sermon to the Birds. I keep forgetting what it's called. And then St. Francois de Paul, Walking on the Waves. So there's two sort of miracles, and they tend to be rather droopy miracles. But that's, it depends on how you feel about them at any given point. When I first reviewed this disc for ClassicsToday.com, I thought the two legends were like really boring. But then I got the scores and I studied and looked and thought about them. And they're not bad. You just have to take them one at a time. I listened to them together. I listened to the whole disc and it was like, oh, that was a mistake. So the thing to do is to give the music a chance to grow on you and take it when you're in a receptive and nice, relaxed mood. And they're actually quite lovely. And, there are more Liszt tone poems kind of works, quite a few, actually, including the Nocturnal Procession and Mephisto Waltz No. 1, the Dance in the Village Inn. Those two, which are sort of together, also could have been in here, but they ain't. And then there's like a whole bunch of other shorter works and funeral things, and it's all kinds of interesting stuff that he did for orchestra. And some of those have been recorded, by others. And, Martin Hasselbach has a whole big Liszt series that's quite splendid, and he's done a bunch of these very interesting things. And I've talked about them on this channel, by the way. So if you look at the Liszt playlist, the Liszt list, yes, I know, the Liszt playlist, then you will find them. But let's get to the business at hand. So we've got the two legends here, and they're beautifully played, and they don't dawdle, and I can't say Noseda does anything wrong at all. It's all about how you react to the music. But if you can listen to the Lark Ascending, you can listen to St. Francis of Assisi doing his bird thing. I mean, I don't really see much difference. Anyway, there's that. Then we've got the Dante Symphony. Now, the Dante Symphony is a problematic work, and everybody sort of agrees with that. You've got the Purgatorio, which is really, really fun, of course, because hell is so much more interesting than heaven, musically anyway. And then you've got the Purgatorio, right? The Inferno is first. Did I say Inferno? I don't even remember. The Inferno is first, and then the Purgatorio. Now, Liszt had a problem. When he was writing the work originally, he wanted to do all three, Purgatorio and Paradiso. But the problem is, people say, well, Paradiso is impossible because you can't really depict divine bliss, and musically it's going to be anticlimactic. It's going to be just a shapeless pudding of niceness. You can't really get to the supreme ecstasy component of it in a way that's going to be musically convincing. At least Liszt was smart enough to know he couldn't. But then the question really becomes, I don't think the issue is the Paradiso. I think Liszt could have written some lovely slow movement full of harps and, celestial things and maybe a choir moaning in the background or something, and it would have been fine. Everybody would have said it's tasteless and shallow and uninteresting. Well, Liszt didn't care about that, so it would have been in business. The problem is the Purgatorio, because it's the pivot. It's the contrasting middle movement if you're going to do a triptych. And nobody really knows what a Purgatorio is. The Inferno is easy. Hellfire, brimstone, misery, nastiness, orchestral mayhem. I mean, you can do it in any number of ways. But how do you do a Purgatorio? Because it's neither here nor there. Purgatory is where you just do your time before you're finally granted access to the highest bliss up in heaven. And what does that sound like musically? I really think that's the problem that Liszt wasn't able to solve, but he had to write something that had to be contrasting to the opening Inferno. And what he wrote is really quite beautiful. He just didn't know how to end it. So he tried a couple different ways. I mean, it's typical Liszt. There's a couple of endings. It doesn't matter which one you choose. They're all equally unconvincing. It's a setting of the Magnificat, and a very pretty setting of the Magnificat. But the slow movement that comes before the voices come in is really quite lovely. I mean, I was just listening to it the other day, and it's really, really pretty music, and it's not tasteless and it's not saccharine. It's works really well after the Inferno. The problem is there's no place to go after that, and you can't really end the symphony convincingly with it. So the Magnificat, I guess, kind of gets the job done. Now, this performance is quite a good one. I don't think there's been any performance that really captures the Inferno in all of its infernality. I mean, the opening is a little bit tepid, but it picks up heat as it goes. And the end, when everything goes completely nutso, is really, really well done and well recorded. And the orchestra makes the most of the opportunities that Liszt affords. I mean, the clarinets cackle nicely. They're supposed to represent hellish laughter. And we know that because Liszt, not leaving it to the interpreters to figure it out, writes a footnote is saying, oh, the clarinets are supposed to represent hellish laughter. So, I mean, and they do. They do a good job of it. So this is a very satisfying conclusion to a very, very satisfying series. It really is. I wouldn't mind hearing some of the other Liszt tone poemy things that these folks do. But this set's been around for a long time now. I mean, this was recorded in, 2009. So I don't think there's any more Liszt coming from this source. It's a very good 5-disc series in repertoire that has not been well served on disc. So you can purchase it with confidence, and that's the point, really. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.